Look around you. Everything you can touch, everything you can see, every star in the night sky, and every cell in your body seems to exist in a very comfortable, familiar arena. We have up and down, left and right, back and forth. And of course, the relentless forward march of time. This is the reality we are used to. It feels complete. But what if I told you that this comfortable arena is nothing more than a shallow surface covering a much deeper, far stranger ocean? Deep underground near the border of France and Switzerland sits the most complex machine human beings have ever constructed. At the European Organization for Nuclear Research, a place we simply call CERN, we are accelerating protons to 99,999% of the speed of light. We smash them together to recreate the conditions of the universe just fractions of a second after the Big Bang. For decades, we have been looking for the ultimate building blocks of our reality. But recently, the data whispering from these colossal collisions is suggesting something that shakes the very foundation of physics. We are seeing hints, tiny anomalies in the debris that suggest particles might be interacting with something completely outside of our standard physical experience. Energy seems to be disappearing, but disappearing to where? We are standing on the precipice of a discovery that could rewrite the textbooks and redefine what it means to exist. If you want to take this journey with me, if you want to peer beyond the veil of the everyday world and understand the true nature of the cosmos, make sure you subscribe to this channel and stay with me. The universe is far more bizarre than we ever imagined. Let me show you what is hiding just out of sight. Listen closely. The reality you experience every day hides a terrifying and fascinating secret. But to truly understand the sheer magnitude of what we are seeing at CERN, we first need to look at the world. We need to go back to the absolute foundation of everything. Think about the simple act of throwing a baseball with your child or your grandchild in the backyard. When you wind up your arm and release the ball, you are transferring the energy from your muscles into that sphere of leather and yarn. The ball flies through the air, and when it smacks into a leather mitt, it creates a loud pop. It generates a tiny bit of heat. If you were to painstakingly measure the energy of your arm, the speed of the ball, the sound waves of the impact, and the microscopic friction of the leather, you would find that the total amount of energy never changed. It just transformed. Or picture a game of pool in a quiet, dimly lit room. You strike the cue ball, it rolls across the felt and smashes into a tight triangle of colored balls. They scatter in every direction. If you measure the speed and angle of every single ball after the break, it will perfectly match the energy and direction of the cue ball before the impact. Nothing is lost. Not a single fraction of momentum simply disappears. This is the bedrock of our universe. It is the principle of the conservation of energy. It is a rule so absolute, so profoundly woven into the fabric of existence that our entire understanding of physics depends on it. We rely on this rule the same way you rely on the sun rising in the east and setting in the west. When I was a young student, this was the very first concept burned into my mind. 3. The cosmic ledger must always balance. Energy cannot be created out of nothing, and it absolutely cannot be destroyed. Now, I want you to take that game of pool and shrink it down to a scale so small it defies human imagination. Then I want you to speed it up to the absolute limit of the universe. This is what we do at the Large Hadron Collider. Instead of billiard balls, we are using protons, the tiny hearts of atoms. We propel 2 beams of these protons in opposite directions around a circular tunnel 17 miles long. We use supercooled electromagnets to push them faster and faster until they are racing at nearly the speed of light. And then at very specific points inside our massive detectors, we force them to cross paths. They collide head-on. When these protons smash into each other, they do not just bounce off like billiard balls. The sheer violence of the impact literally melts them down into pure energy for a fleeting fraction of a second. Out of that microscopic inferno, brand new particles are born because the 2 protons hit each other head-on with perfectly balanced momentum. The debris from the explosion flies out sideways, perpendicular to the collision. We built our detectors, machines like Atlas and CMS, to capture this debris. Imagine a digital camera the size of a cathedral designed to take 40 million pictures every single second. These detectors are built like giant hermetic vaults. They are layered with dense metals and ultra-sensitive electronics designed to trap and measure every single spark, every flash of light, and every piece of shrapnel that comes flying out of that collision. We do this for one reason. We want to balance the checkbook. We look at all the particles flying out to the left and all the particles flying out to the right. We add up their momentum, we add up their energy, and because of the fundamental laws I just told you about, when we tally everything up, it must perfectly balance out to zero. If there is a huge burst of energy flying in one direction, there must be an equal burst of energy flying in the exact opposite direction. The universe demands this balance. For decades, every time we ran the math, the ledger balanced perfectly. Every particle was accounted for. Every collision proved that our foundational understanding of reality was correct. We felt confident. We felt like we truly understood the rules of the game. But then we started looking closer. We started pushing the collisions to higher and higher energies, searching for the deepest secrets of the cosmos. And that is when the foundation beneath our feet began to crack. Because recently, when we add up the energy after some of these massive collisions, the ledger is no longer balancing. I told you that the cosmic ledger must always balance. When we smash protons together at the Large Collider, the energy of the collision is converted into a shower of new particles. Our detectors, acting as perfect accountants, track every electron, every photon, and every muon flying outward. We measure their speed, their mass, and their trajectory. We add it all up, and the sum must equal the exact energy of the original protons. But in some of our most violent collisions, the accountants are finding a terrifying discrepancy. We are seeing a ghost in the machine. Let me give you a way to picture this. Imagine the most secure bank vault in the world. The walls are made of solid steel, 3 feet thick. There are no windows, no vents, and no drains. The only way in or out is through a massive titanium door monitored by a dozen cameras. You walk into this vault holding exactly $1 million in cash. You place the money on a table in the center of the room. You walk out and the door seals shut behind you. The cameras never blink. The sensors never sleep. A week later, you open the door and walk back in. You count the money on the table, but there is only $900,000. $100,000 has simply vanished. You check the cameras, no one entered. You check the sensors, nothing breached the walls. The vault is completely airtight, but the money is gone. In our everyday reality, this is impossible. Money does not just cease to exist, someone must have taken it. But how? This is exactly what we are seeing in the data at CERN. We call it missing transverse energy. We smash the protons. The explosion happens. The particles scatter into the detector. We add up all the energy we can see, but a massive chunk of it is missing. It is as if the energy was carried away by a phantom particle, something completely invisible to our most advanced technology. Now, your first instinct might be that our machines are simply broken. Maybe there is a blind spot in the detector. Maybe we just missed it. Believe me, that was our first instinct too. We spent years checking and rechecking the instruments. We calibrated the sensors. We refined the algorithms, but the missing energy did not go away. It is real. The bank vault is perfectly sealed, but the money is still disappearing. So if the energy is not destroyed and it is not hiding in a blind spot, where on earth is it going? To answer that, we have to rethink the very nature of the vault itself. We have to reconsider the shape of our universe. What if the vault is not actually sealed? What if there is a trapdoor? But this is not a trapdoor made of steel or wood. It is a trapdoor in the fabric of space itself. Since you were a child, you have been taught that the universe has 3 spatial dimensions. You can move forward and backward. You can move left and right. You can move up and down. This is the stage upon which the entire play of your life has been performed. It is all you have ever known. But the mathematics of modern physics, specifically string theory, has been screaming at us for decades that this 3-dimensional stage is a highly convincing illusion. The math requires the existence of more dimensions, extra dimensions, dimensions that are folded up, curled so tightly into the microscopic fabric of space that we cannot see them. Think of a tightrope walker high above a circus floor. To the acrobat on the wire, the rope is one-dimensional. They can only move forward or backward. But to a tiny ant walking on that exact same rope, the surface has another dimension. The ant can crawl around the rope, underneath it, and back on top. The dimension is there, but it is only accessible if you are small enough to experience it. We believe that the missing energy at CERN is not vanishing into nothingness. We believe it is leaking. We are hitting these protons with so much force, so much raw power, that for a fleeting instant, we are kicking particles off our three-dimensional tight rope. They are tumbling into the extra dimensions. They are slipping through the cracks in reality. We are not just breaking atoms. We might be punching holes into an invisible universe that exists right next to our own. If you are following my logic, a profound question should be rising up in your mind. A question that seems like a direct, impossible contradiction of everything you experience in your daily life. If there are extra dimensions hiding right in front of us, and if energy is leaking into them, why don't we feel it? Why isn't the table you are sitting at collapsing into an extra dimension right now? Why aren't the planets in our solar system drifting helplessly out of their orbits? This brings us to one of the most maddening paradoxes in all of modern physics. We call it the hierarchy problem. But at its heart, it is the mystery of the incredible, almost absurd weakness of gravity. Think about this for a moment. Gravity feels immense to us. It holds your feet firmly to the floor. It holds our atmosphere wrapped around the globe so we can breathe. It keeps the Earth locked in a steady orbit around the fiery sphere of the Sun. Gravity shapes galaxies and steers the cosmos. To our human senses, gravity feels like the absolute ruler of reality, but gravity is an illusionist. It is infinitely weaker than every other fundamental force in nature. I want you to perform a simple thought experiment with me. Imagine a tiny refrigerator magnet, the kind holding a postcard to your kitchen door. You hold that magnet over a small metal paperclip resting on a wooden table. You lower the magnet, and suddenly the paperclip leaps off the table and snaps against the magnet. Now pause and consider what just took place right before your eyes. That tiny magnet, containing just a fraction of an ounce of magnetized iron, easily defeated the gravitational pull of the entire planet Earth. Think about that mass. 6 sextillion tons of rock, nickel, and iron pulling downward on that paperclip with all its gravitational might completely lost a tug-of-war against a trinket you bought on vacation. How is that possible? Why should a microscopic electromagnetic force completely overpower an entire planet's gravity? If gravity operated with the same intrinsic strength as electromagnetism, or the strong nuclear force that binds the cores of atoms together, our universe could not exist. If gravity were that strong, the electrical forces holding your atoms together would be overwhelmed instantly. Matter would collapse into microscopic black holes. The sun would squeeze itself into a dead cinder in a fraction of a second. You and I would be flattened into infinite decimal points of infinite density. So physics presents us with a profound paradox. On one hand, gravity is impossibly absurdly weak compared to the other forces. On the other hand, gravity is the only force that dictates the architecture of the cause across millions of light years. For generations, theoretical physicists tried to solve this by looking inside our known world. We invented new hypothetical particles. We tweaked the equations of relativity. But the math refused to cooperate until we considered a radically different idea born from the mathematics of extra dimensions. What if gravity is not inherently weak at all? What if gravity only appears weak to us because it is leaking? Imagine you are sitting in a massive enclosed theater. In the middle of the stage, someone strikes a high-pitched chime. If you are sitting on the stage right next to the chime, the sound is sharp and powerful. But as you walk back through the vast rows of seats, the sound waves spread out in 3 dimensions. The energy spreads thin, filling the height, width, and depth of the massive hall. By the time the sound reaches the back row, it is barely a whisper. Now imagine that all the other forces of nature, like light and electricity, are trapped on the 2-dimensional surface of the stage floor. They cannot move upward or sideways into the air. They are locked to the surface. so their energy remains concentrated. This is what string theory suggests about our universe. The matter that makes up your body, the light from the stars, the magnetic forces on your refrigerator door are all stuck to our three-dimensional universe. We are bound to a membrane, a surface in space. But gravity is different. Gravity is the curvature of space itself. Gravity is not trapped on our surface. Gravity is free to radiate outward into the extra dimensions. Gravity seems weak to us because its strength is being diluted, spreading across dimensions we cannot see. We are living in the back row of the theater, hearing only a diluted whisper of gravity's true power. And this brings us to the heart of the paradox at CERN. Because if gravity truly leaks into extra dimensions, it means that when we smash protons together at extreme energies, gravity should suddenly become immensely strong at tiny distances. In those microscopic fractions of a second inside the accelerator, we should be bending space so violently that we breach the fabric of our three-dimensional world. I want you to hold on tight. Hurry, because this is where everything you thought you knew about reality shatters. I have told you that gravity might be leaking out of our three-dimensional world into extra dimensions. But if that is true, then the reverse must also be true. If we look closely enough at a scale so unimaginably small that the extra dimensions are right in front of us, gravity should not be weak anymore. At that microscopic scale, gravity should be the most terrifyingly powerful force in existence. Imagine a tightly stretched trampoline. If you roll a marble across it, it barely makes a dent. The trampoline feels rigid, flat, and unbreakable. That is how space feels to us in our daily lives. But now, imagine taking a bowling ball and firing it straight down into the center of that trampoline at 1,000 minutes an hour. The fabric will violently warp, stretch, and perhaps even tear. This is what we are trying to achieve inside the Large Hadron Collider. When we take two protons and smash them head-on at nearly the speed of light, we are not just breaking them apart. We are cramming a massive amount of energy into an infinitesimally small point in space. According to the mathematics of string theory and extra dimensions, if we squeeze enough energy into a tiny enough space, the localized gravity spikes exponentially. The trampoline warps. Space and time pinch together so violently that they collapse in on themselves. We theoretically could create a microscopic black hole. Now, do not panic. I know that when I say the words black hole, you probably picture a cosmic monster swallowing stars and planets, but these microscopic black holes are entirely different. Because they are so incredibly small, the laws of quantum mechanics dictate that they cannot sustain themselves. Almost the exact instant they are born, they would boil away. They evaporate in a blinding flash of energy, producing a distinctive spray of subatomic particles. When one of these microscopic black holes evaporates, it erupts into a spectacular shower of normal matter. It is a fireworks display of pure physics. Our cathedral-sized detectors are built to capture this explosion. We look for the electrons, the photons, the quarks flying out in all directions. But here is the moment that should break your brain, because gravity is not trapped in our three dimensions. Some of the energy from that collision does not come back to us. It is carried away by theoretical particles of gravity called gravitons. But these gravitons do not just fly down the tunnel of the collider. They do not hit the walls of our detector. They step off the tightrope. They leave our universe. They escape into the extra dimensions, leaving behind an event with a massive amount of missing transverse momentum. When we look at the aftermath of such an event, we see the beautiful shower of particles. But the math does not add up. A huge chunk of the energy is simply gone. It has vanished not into thin air, but into a dimension that we cannot touch, cannot see, and cannot experience. The matter and typical gauge particles are trapped on our three-dimensional surface, but the gravitons are able to leave our surface and travel into the full volume of the higher dimensions. Let that sink in. We are not just observing particles bouncing off each other. We are looking for pieces of our reality falling through a trapdoor into an invisible, higher dimensional space. We are knocking on the door of another universe, and we are trying to measure the energy that slips through the crack. The missing energy we are searching for is not a mistake in our calculations. It is a shadow cast by a dimension we can never enter. It is the ultimate proof that the universe you have lived in your entire life is just a thin, fragile slice of a much grander, very much stranger cosmic architecture. You are living on a soap bubble, completely unaware of the vast multi-dimensional room in which you are floating. And if energy can leave our universe, you have to ask yourself, what if something could come in? I asked you a question a moment ago. If energy can leak out of our three-dimensional universe, could something leak in? It is human nature to let the mind wander into science fiction, to picture some terrifying alien force reaching through the veil of reality, but the hard truth of modern physics is far more humbling, and in a profound way far more beautiful. Something is already leaking in. It has been leaking in since the very moment the universe was born 14 billion years ago. We just call it gravity. To understand this hard truth, I need you to imagine a shadow on the pavement. Picture a completely flat, two-dimensional being living on the surface of a concrete sidewalk. For this being, reality consists entirely of length and width. There is no such thing as up. The very concept of height does not exist in their physics, their language, or their biology. Now, imagine that you, a three-dimensional human, walk past this sidewalk on a sunny day. To you, you are moving through the full richness of the world. But to that flat creature on the concrete, they do not see you. They only see your shadow. They see a flat, dark shape that suddenly appears, morphs, changes size, and miraculously vanishes. The flat scientists in that two-dimensional world would dedicate their lives to studying your shadow. They would invent complex laws of physics to explain how the shadow moves. They would measure its speed and its area. But no matter how advanced their science becomes, they could never, ever look up. They are physically trapped in a reality that lacks the architecture to perceive the three-dimensional object casting the shadow. This is the hard truth of our human existence. The mathematics of string theory and extra dimensions strongly suggest that our entire universe, spanning billions of light years across, is just a shadow on the sidewalk. We live on what theoretical physicists call a membrane, or a brain for short. It is a three-dimensional slice floating within a much larger, higher dimensional space. We call this vast, unimaginable arena the bulk. Everything you are, the atoms in your blood, the light radiating from the sun, the electrical impulses in your brain, are firmly glued to this three-dimensional membrane. Our brains evolved over millions of years to track predators on the savannah, to judge the distance of a falling branch, and to navigate a three-dimensional world. We are biologically unequipped to picture a universe with 10 or 11 dimensions. When you try to visualize it, your mind simply fails. It hits a solid wall of human limitation. But where our biological intuition completely collapses, the mathematics continues to walk forward without us. The equations do not care about the limits of human imagination. They tell us with cold, beautiful precision that the bulk is real. So when we fire up the magnificent machine at CERN, we must confront our own limitations. We are not trying to open a portal that we can walk through. We can never leave our membrane. We are forever bound to the surface of the bubble. The hard truth is that we are trapped in a state of profound cosmic isolation. We are trying to understand the full shape and depth of an infinite ocean while being forever confined to the surface of a single microscopic droplet. The missing energy we are hunting for in the collider, those microscopic fractions of a second where the cosmic ledger fails to balance, is the only bridge we have. It is the only signal we can send into the dark. Because gravity is not glued to our membrane, it can freely travel across the bulk. When we smash protons and measure the missing transverse energy, we are essentially rattling the bars of our three-dimensional cage. We are knocking on the walls of reality, and we are holding our breath, waiting to see if the cage rattles back. We are rattling the bars of our three-dimensional cage. And right now, at this very moment, we are turning up the power. Think about an old analog radio, the kind you might have had in your living room decades ago. You slowly turn the heavy tuning dial, listening through the thick, crackling static, searching for a clear signal. You pass through endless frequencies of white noise, maybe a faint whisper of a local station, but you keep turning. You are delicately increasing the frequency, searching for that one perfect resonance where a voice from 1,000 miles away suddenly comes through with crystal clarity. At CERN, we are turning the dial. We are preparing to enter what we call the high luminosity era of the Large Hadron Collider. Over the next few years, we will compress the proton beams even tighter, focusing them down to the microscopic width of a fraction of a human hair. We are going to smash them together with a ferocious intensity that will produce 10 times more data than everything we have collected over the past decade combined. We are not just looking through a larger telescope. We are turning on a cosmic floodlight in a pitch-black room. We are sifting through the static of billions of subatomic collisions every single second, looking for that one perfect resonance. We are searching for the exact mathematical signature of a graviton stepping off the tightrope of our reality and vanishing into the bulk. If we find it, if we turn the dial and suddenly the missing transverse energy perfectly aligns with the mathematical prediction of a particle escaping into a higher dimension, it will be the single most profound discovery in the history of human civilization. It will be our ultimate Kaepernick moment. 500 years ago, we confidently believed the Earth was the immovable center of the cosmos. Nicholas, Copernicus, and Galileo shattered that comforting illusion, proving we were just a rock orbiting an average star. Then, a century ago, Edwin Hubble looked through his telescope and shattered our worldview once again, proving that our vast Milky Way was not the entire universe, but just one galaxy among billions drifting in an expanding void. Discovering extra dimensions would be the final, ultimate humbling of humanity. It would physically prove that not only are we not the center of the universe, but our entire three-dimensional universe is not the center of reality. It would prove that the entirety of human history, everything we have ever loved, built and destroyed, has taken place on just one thin, fragile page in an infinitely thick book of dimensions. This is not just about complex math or giant underground machines. It is about deeply understanding your place in the grand, terrifying architecture of existence. Every time you look up at the night sky, every time you feel the weight of your own body, you are interacting with forces that stretch far beyond the biological limits of your perception. You are part of a multi-dimensional symphony. Even if you only have the ears to hear a single instrument, exploring these deep, breathtaking mysteries takes time. It requires us to peel back the layers of reality without rushing, without dumbing down the science, and without treating you like a child. I want to keep bringing you to the absolute edge of human knowledge. I want to keep translating the most complex mathematics in the world into a language we can all understand and appreciate. But to do that, I need your help. If this journey has expanded your mind today, if it has made you look at the mundane world around you with a renewed sense of awe and wonder, please consider supporting this channel directly by using the Super Thanks button just below this video. 3. Your contribution is the exact fuel that allows me to dedicate the intense hours, the meticulous research, and the absolute precision required to create these cinematic deep dives into the cosmos. It tells me that there is a mature, intelligent audience out there who craves the real science, the hard truths, and the profound mysteries of our universe. Click the Super Thanks button. Leave a comment with your thoughts on extra dimensions and help me keep this exploration alive. We are standing on the edge of a new frontier. The Trapur in our universe is waiting to be